Welcome. I'm Kinetic Symphony. I hunt down and report on weird and true mysterious stories, from glitches to the paranormal. Kinetic Symphony 1512, written by Comfortable Pie 7983. The day I thought I crashed, but didn't. About 4 years ago, I lived in the Bay Area and was in the awful morning traffic. That morning, I was in a big rush and had forfeited my coffee at home, with the intention of having it once I got to work. I'm sitting in this traffic when I go to mess with the radio. I'm totally distracted and rear-end a white truck in front of me. My heart drops, throw on my blinker and try to see how the dude I crashed into is reacting. Except he's not reacting at all. He doesn't look in his rearview mirror at me, doesn't signal, nothing. Traffic moves forward a tiny bit, and I'm sick to my stomach, trying to see the damage on his truck that I've caused. But there's no damage at all to his truck. Crazy, because I can vividly recall the crunch noise and the feeling of the impact, even to this day. I figured that my car got the brunt of the damage, and this guy probably doesn't have insurance and doesn't want to stop in this horrible traffic. I cheer myself on like, okay, I guess we're gonna have to get our car fixed. That sucks, but at least this day isn't ruined. As I'm getting closer to work, I keep hearing my brain say, that didn't happen, it wasn't real. I totally disregard this because the crunch of the car and the thud of the impact was so real. When I get to work, I jump out to assess the damage to my car. Nothing, not a scrape, nothing. With the noise it made, I imagine my entire front bumper was probably smushed in. I'll never forget the experience and feeling of this absolutely wild madness. Not schizophrenic, no drugs, was awake, just don't know how to explain what occurred. Kinetic Symphony 1512. The day I thought I crashed, but I didn't. I do think a version of you crashed, but it was more the perception of who crashed. It wasn't necessarily the you currently. I think quantum immortality isn't necessarily a great fit. There's variations to the theme, you could say. One way or another, I don't believe this was a dream. It wasn't a vision. I don't believe it was figment, a creation of your mind. I think it really did happen in one universe or another. For whatever reason, you were consciously perceptive of it. Now it is possible it's just quantum immortality. Case file number 1513, written by Anonymous. The Sixth Sense of Family. My dad's side of my family does this on sort of a regular basis. A couple years ago, my father insisted that my mom needed to talk to her brother, needed to do it now. He insisted that uncle wasn't well and needed to talk to her. Dad didn't even like my uncle. So after a few days of pestering, my mom had me call. Uncle picked up the phone, but he had literally just walked in the door, having just gotten out of the hospital where he had been exactly the same amount of time Dad had started insisting she needed to call. It was exactly 6 days, having had cancer surgery. My sister, Odo, is known for showing up exactly when she's needed. The oddest example was that for no reason anyone can figure out, she turned around halfway on her commute to work, went back home and arrived just as her husband collapsed from a stroke. He had been asleep when she left. She hadn't left anything at home. She just turned around and went home. She called the ambulance and he recovered, whereas if she hadn't come home, he'd likely have died. If that was one incident, we'd think it was just a little odd. But all of her life, she just randomly arrives just as someone needs her, and 90% of the time, she has no explanation as to why it happened other than a feeling she should stop by. Very odd, but she's learned to listen to whatever the heck is telling her, where she needs to be. This side of the family calls this sort of thing thinking on people. They consider it a fairly reliable form of communication, which just sounds really odd to other people, but is just taken as a given among the family. Kinetic Symphony 1513. The Sixth Sense of Family. Oh, Oto, your sister, is a wizard, because they arrive precisely when they mean to. But no, in all seriousness, this is an uncommon ability that I think everyone has the potential to harness. It is more of a sense than an ability. The more tethered you are to someone, the more souls you're linked or like quantum entangled. The more you can perceive what's happening to them. Even if your mind can't always decode it into the conscious, you still get a gut feeling. And often that gut feeling is correct. So I always say, trust your gut. No, it's not always going to be correct. The senses we have can be fooled or can be misconstrued by our subconscious. But generally, they're going to be correct or lead you in the correct path. So you might not know why your gut is telling you to go home during the day, but if it's very strong, listen to it. Case file number 1514, written by Vegancourt. My broken Lapis Lazuli defied logic. This absolutely has my mind blown. I'm a crystal collector. I also have a rock tumbler that I like to throw rough pieces in from time to time. I have a Lapis Lazuli worry stone that broke into 2 pieces a couple years ago. This past summer, I finally got a tumbler. I was excited to tumble the 2 broken pieces to smooth out the rough edges. I threw them in with some other stones of the same-ish hardness. For those that don't know, tumbling takes a lot of time and multiple rounds with different types of grit. So a week goes by, it's time to take them out clean and put them back in with the different grit. I was with my husband in the kitchen as I was assembling them back in the tub. I mentioned to him how I love this particular piece of smoothing and excited for the end result. The rocks tumble. About a week later, I took them to do the process again. My husband helps me rinse them off in the backyard. We're done, come back in, and I start putting them back. That's when I noticed the larger piece of the lapis that broke was missing. No big deal. It probably fell outside while rinsing. I searched and searched the yard. At this point, I'm upset because I was really excited about this particular piece. I looked everywhere, even illogical places. Maybe it could have dissolved? No, the other small piece was still in the batch, no issues. Plus there would be blue grit everywhere. It was a whole ordeal for me, and I was ranting about it to my husband all night. Could never find it, so I moved on. Then this morning, it's my coworker's birthday, and she's been starting to take an interest in crystals. I have quite a bit of raw pieces, so I thought I'd go through my box and pick a couple for her. Then there it was, sitting on the top of all the other ones, totally untumbled. I'm completely baffled. I told my husband, and he's just as bewildered as me. We both know this happened and nothing logical can explain it. Side note, when it went missing, I said to my husband, watch, it will just appear out of nowhere one day. But having it also in the state it was before I started tumbling is a whole new level of weird. Case file 1514. My broken Lapis Lazuli defied logic. Yeah, so DOP is very common, but this is an extra wrinkle. Maybe a wrinkle in time? The question is this from a different universe in a past version of that same universe, or it could just be yours? The thing is, time travel is very finicky when you're within the same universe. So it might just be you stole it from a different universe, a snapshot of their past. And if we go with that logic, then DOP where an object disappears or returns, or maybe you just get a duplicate. But if it can be from past timelines, things that have already happened, well, you're robbing from the past. Who cares then? It already happened. So that's not a big deal. If you can borrow stuff from the past in different timelines, okay. I'm not robbing from myself in the now in those other universes. That'd be cool. And now time for the quote of the day. It is not giving children more that spoils them. It is giving them more to avoid confrontation. John Gray. This one makes me think a bit. I do believe that if you give your children too much without any effort on their part, then yeah, they can become spoiled. They can become entitled. They feel they deserve it because it's how they've always lived. So it's always a question, if you're a rich family, rich parents, how do you raise your kids well so they still develop character? Because you still want to care for them, you want to give them the best life you can, but if you spoil them, then yeah, they're gonna grow up spoiled most of the time. Maybe not always, there's some exceptions, I'm sure. So how do you do it then? There's different ideas, like pretending you're poor or middle class, and then on their 18th birthday, you just give them a lump sum after they've already gone through the trials and tribulations of childhood and teenage years as a normal version of it. That's one way to do it. But personally, I think just strong sense of chores, and they can't get anything they want at any time, but you do give them a decent amount, but they have to work for it. So they do chores around the house, they help around, they get a good work ethic. That's probably the best of both worlds. Like the video, subscribe, hit the bell. Kinetic Symphony signing off.